40 Evil Queen from Snow White Acrylic Nail Art Tutorial by Hotpinkzebrapolish.
Hello everyone, in today's video it's going to be part 2 of my shape-shifting Disney villains series. It is going to be the Evil Queen. So usually with the other two I've got them in like their traditional form on top, so Ursula when she's an octopus and Maleficent when she's in her fairy form. And then I've got their lesser used forms underneath, so dragon and when Ursula's a human. But for this one I really like the Evil Queen when she's the old lady way more, the old hag, way more than when she's just her normal queen self. So I kind of flip-flopped it. I put the old hag on top and the queen underneath just because I think it's so much more visually appealing to have all those wrinkles and everything in 3D. So that is, I just kind of flip-flop that. I hope you guys like this one, and don't forget to click subscribe to see all my future videos as well.
So to begin with, I'm going to start the background with a layer of an orchid color of acrylic, just kind of like a purpley pink sort of shade, just to add the color in the background. So just begin with that. This color that I have actually is a little bit sheer, so as you can see it's a little bit, I don't know, not smooth looking as far as the color goes. But that's okay because there's going to be so much painting on it you won't be able to tell that. But before the acrylic is dry, you're going to want to set a magnet into the nail about in the center and then add just a little bit more acrylic around it, just because, like I said, it just, I don't know, needed a little bit more because the color was a little bit streaky. And then encase the nail with a layer of clear acrylic to make sure that it is nice and strong, and also to make sure that your acrylic is the same height and the same thickness as your magnet. You want it to be at this stage either the same thickness or a little thicker, because then as you file, you'll file back down to the magnet, but you want to make sure that the magnet isn't sticking up. So then file the nail into shape, and I'm using my E-file for this, and I started with a fairly coarse bit just to make sure that I'm removing any bulk and getting back down to that magnet, and then going over it again with a much finer bit to remove any issues, any little scratches that first file may have left behind. So now I'm going to be painting my Evil Queen. And I started with just a very light peach color, and I did her face, which is, she's got a very heart-shaped face. So a very almost rounded out heart is what that is with that light peach color. And then with a black paint, I'm going to be painting the hood of her dress or her cloak. And so now I'm going to be painting that. So just kind of go around it. She's got very little black that goes around it, so just a little bit kind of squaring off the top of her head for the base of where her crown will be, and then just going around it like that, and then filling in her neck. And then I left a little bit of a gap between that little bit of neckline there and then where the rest of her dress is, because she's got that big white collar that goes around her head, and I just figured I'd leave that area blank because that's where that is going to go eventually. So then with a golden yellow color, I'm going to be painting her crown, and so I just started by outlining that same black line at the very top of her head, and then adding the 5 little points of her crown with that. It's kind of like a mustardy golden sunflower yellow. So many words for that color, but just go ahead and add that. Just, you know, a couple layers of it. It might take, since it is yellow, to me always seems like it takes a couple extra coats than other colors. So I ended up applying 2 coats of yellow to her crown. And then with white paint, I'm going to go through and I'm going to be adding that collar that I mentioned. So add it going around her head. I know there's not too much space, so you can't see the entire thing, but then it goes around her neckline, and then it's attached with a little bit of a golden embellishment right at like her, right there, right at her neckline. And so then go ahead and add a second layer of yellow to that crown like I mentioned. And now we're going to go through and we're going to be adding all of her facial features, which is really where this comes to life. So I'm going to start with her eyebrows. I really like to start with eyebrows whenever I'm painting a character. I think that just kind of like how eyebrows frame your face when you're doing your makeup, something that, you know, some people think about. It's also a really good thing to have eyebrows to frame and start out your face, because you can usually, especially with these cartoon characters, you can see how far from their hairline their eyebrows are, and you can kind of, it's an easy thing to figure out what proportion of her face down there, what level they are, and then it's easy to just kind of keep going down her face. I think it's the way I like to do it. So I did black for her eyebrows, her outlines of her eyes, and then little dots for her nostrils. With red, I added her lips, and then a little bit of red inside that little embellishment that is on her dress. And then I'm going to be filling in her eyes with white, adding a little bit of a green in her eyes, and then around for her eyeshadow, just some lavender. Try to make it a similar color to the background, but, you know, as close as it gets. Mine was a little bit more of a blue tone, but then add just a little bit of that lavender, and then I did a slight outline of her crease. and then a little bit of her black pupil. Then I thickened up the line of her eyelashes and then applied a layer of gel sealer and threw that into my lamp to cure. So now I'm going to be wrapping the nail very tightly with plastic wrap. So just kind of fold it around as tightly as you can and kind of pull it, because the plastic wrap will stretch some. Don't stretch it to the point where it's going to tear, but stretch it so that it'll kind of create a dent in it, the shape of the nail. So it'll kind of get that curvature built in. There will probably still be some wrinkles though, just bear that in mind, but try to minimize them. So then you're going to start with a layer of white acrylic for the old hag's face. So just begin with, just kind of, you want to make sure that you are covering up the magnet entirely though, because especially if you're using a cover pink that isn't completely opaque to create her skin tone, which is what I used, then you're going to want to make sure that it's got this nice clean slate underneath it with the white paint, so that nothing underneath it's going to show through, including the magnet. After you have that white base on there, go ahead and you're going to be making her hooded cloak with black acrylic. So go ahead and just I started out with the top of it, which sticks up because it's got kind of a point on it. It's a very basic hood design, so it kind of sticks up, and then fill in the rest of the nail with the black acrylic. So as far as the acrylic colors go, actually this one has very minimal acrylic, different colors of acrylic. You've got black, white, and cover pink. But go ahead and just completely encase her head with that black. And then she's also got, you can see just a touch of her shoulder on the side. So that's what that other little side lump is. It's because she's really hunched over. That's the top of her back. I'm going to be adding a little bit of thickness right around where her hood and her face meet, because the hood kind of shadows over her face some, so you want that to be a little thicker so it looks like it is kind of going up over her head. And then she's got a couple straggly pieces of hair that are sticking out, so I did those with white. They are kind of a cream color, but I didn't have the right color of acrylic for that, so I just made that straw color with paint later on. So I just started out with adding them with white at this point. And I just did the one side. I'll do the other side of her hair after I have her face done. So I'm going to be adding a layer of cover pink, like I said, to her face and to her neck. Just a little bit of her neck shows underneath there, not too much. So just add that first layer to get the color down. And then you're going to start building up her facial features. But before you do that, take anything that's kind of pokey. This is the back of one of my 3D sculpting brushes. And I just created a little bit of a indent for where her eye sockets are. And then I'm just going to go over everything, and then I'm going to be adding a little bit of thickness to her cheekbones, and then I'll be adding a little bit of thickness to her nose. So I started out with the cheekbones just like that. Oh, and also a little bit of thickness on her chin. So I'm just going to kind of be punching that out. She's got a very gaunt appearance, a very thin, kind of malnutritioned appearance. So kind of, really pronounced cheekbones, really pronounced chin, very pronounced eye. Any of that fleshy cheek material is sunken in at this point. But then I'm going to be adding her nose. She's got a very pronounced, crooked, sticking out nose, like any old hag should. And then I'm just going to be going through with white, and I'm going to be adding a little bit of white in each eye. So take a bead of white of acrylic and try to make it a stiff bead. I know mine's still kind of spread out, but you want to try to keep it bulbous looking, so she's got kind of bug eyes. So after you've grabbed your bead on your brush, flip your brush over and take the excess liquid out of the back of the brush, just so that it kind of soaks up anything that's going to make the acrylic want to run or spread out too much. So just kind of make it a really firm bead. And then now, like I said, I'm going to be adding the rest of her hair, so I'm just going to take that bead and kind of spread it down the other side of her face. The reason I did the one side before is because she's turned, so the first section of hair that I did is behind her head, and this one is actually going over her face just a touch. So you kind of want to make sure that you sculpt things in the order that they're appearing to the viewer, to the camera, to yourself, however you want to think of it. And so now that she's done, I'm going to take her off that plastic wrap once it was fully set, and I'm going to start painting. So I just did her eyes first with a little highlight of white, and then with black paint I'm going to be doing, first she's got very thick eyebrows, and like I've said when I was painting the queen human form, the other queen, the younger form first, underneath I like to start with eyebrows. So I did eyebrows and then little brow line wrinkles, and then I'm going to be painting around her eyes. I started with shadowing around her eyes with brown. Like I said before, she's got that very gaunt, hungry, ill appearance, so you want to make sure that she's got nice circles around her eyes. And then with a cream color, I went and I just added that over her hair to make sure that that was not so white. And then going back with black, I'm going to be outlining her jawline because she does have that little bit of neck that's there. So you want to make sure that that is visible. I also did a couple outlines under her cheekbones and then around her eyes. And then I'm going to be adding, just little outlines here and there around her nose too. I want to make sure that everything still has that cartoon appearance, and then also add that nice wart on the top of her nose. You can't forget that either. And then just keep adding little outlines. These older animated films are very they're very outlined. They're not nearly as, I don't know, shaded in dimensional as ones are today. So you got to make sure that you kind of stay with the style and make sure everything has those wonderful outlines. Add her little bit of a mouth with red and then a nice white tooth underneath. And then with diluted gray, I'm going to be adding a couple highlights on her cloak just to make sure that it does have some dimension, is not just black. In her eyes, she had a dot of brown and then a dot of black. Apply a layer of matte top coat, and then she is done. And once that is dry, you can go ahead and see how that fits on the other nail and make sure that everything is all hunky-dory. I really like this one. Like I said, I think the Old Hag just looks so fantastic in 3D. Her nose especially just pops out. It looks amazing. So I hope you guys like it too, and please share any recreations with me on Facebook or Instagram. I would love to see them. Check the description box to see links to the other videos in this short little series, and I will see you in my next video. Bye!